This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. Now, here's your host, Kevin Pruitt.
This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. My name is Kevin Pruitt. It's my honor to host this podcast, and I've got a great guest today. He's got over 14 years of experience in product and business development. He's passionate about creating innovative solutions that help companies automate manual work with AI. As the CEO of Jeeva.ai, he leads a team of talented engineers, data scientists, and AI researchers who are on a mission to build AI agents with AutoGPT. Before joining Jeeva, he was the CEO and co-founder of Involve.ai, a customer service AI platform and community designed to bring employees closer together. He helped find and source community opportunities for companies to get involved and find their purpose at work. He scaled the platform to over 500 companies and 1.1 million employees globally, leveraging his skills in programming, software development, and Python to design, develop, and launch the platform. Please join me in welcoming Gaurav Bhattacharya to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. I am sorry for butchering that name, probably.
You did great, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Very excited to be here.
Well, he actually said, everybody calls him G because we're notoriously bad at pronouncing names. So we may just call you G from now on, if that's all right.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, everyone calls me G.
So, hey, man, intros are short. We try to keep them short just to get right to the heart of the matter. But is there anything else that I didn't mention that you kind of want to round it out a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, maybe I'll give a quick story about myself, Kevin. I think that could be, so just a little bit about me, Kevin. I come from in New Delhi, like you mentioned. I was born and raised by a blue-collar mother. I lost my dad to cancer when I was 2 years old. I started coding. I was a nerdy kid. I started coding at 10 years old. I actually have a really funny story there. But one of my uncles we grew up very poor, Kevin. So we always looked up to this one uncle who did really well for himself. And me and my brother were always asking him, like, hey, what advice do you have for us as we were kids growing up? Like, how do we become like you? He was like a role model. And he said something which I still believe is kind of valid. I know there's a lot going on with AI, but he said you just need to learn two things right now based on what's really important in life. One, you got to learn how to sell because you'll always be selling. Marketing is sales, right? Like you have to sell employees, investors, everything. You're always selling. And number two, you got to learn how to code. So just focus on technology because it's going to be very relevant. So that's kind of how my career started. I started coding when I was 10, built my first video game at 12. Had a startup back in India, which was very cool. We did a lot of machine learning, and our market was radiologists and doctors and hospitals. So that was our first business, completely bootstrapped, ran it for about 7-8 years. And when it got acquired, that's kind of when I moved to the US. So yeah, got very excited about machine learning. First video games, then ML AI, and that's been kind of my journey ever since. Basically, it's been around either sales or coding.
Now, when did you land in the States? You mentioned before we hit the big red record button here, you mentioned that you had been you were in DC before you were in San Francisco. But so what brought you to DC?
Yeah, 2011. I actually came here to Washington, DC. I had some family here. I had just sold my first startup. And, I was still very young and I wanted to do something different. And I started working. I got a job with PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, just for a little bit. I was there only it's not a long enough time that I can put it on my resume, but it was really fun. And they moved me out here. They felt that they needed someone to run their technology division here. And they found that I was very entrepreneurial. They wanted to do a lot of things with ML AI very early on. It didn't work out, which was really interesting. The story basically was we were trying to do a lot of the management consulting work that they did with AI, but it was kind of like a cannibalizing business for themselves, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
But that was really fun. So I moved to DC. I lived there for about a year or a couple of years before I moved out to the West Coast here. But that's kind of why I moved to Washington DC and really enjoyed it. I lived in an international house, which was really fun. It was a lot of people from France, from Germany, from UK, from Mexico. So it was like a really great experience. Like when I first moved to the US, I was thinking I'm going to be eating pizzas and hamburgers every day. And then I realized that it's crazy how multicultural it is, right? And DC is like a melting pot. it was a very fun experience for me.
As we mentioned, I mean, I'm sitting about 90 minutes south of DC. It depends on traffic. It could be 4 days, but it certainly is not very far. But man, you
Yeah.
not only culture shock to go from Delhi to DC. I mean, now you went from DC to San Francisco. I mean,
Yeah,
you went from the East Coast to the West Coast. So talk
that's right.
about that transition and really what
Mhm.
brought you to the West Coast.
Yeah, so I have a very I have one of my favorite stories is, like when I was in the East Coast, a lot of my buddies are from there, so they're very passionate about how East Coast is so much better than the West Coast, and that was a doctrine. I was, like all the East Coast rappers, all the musicians. I was basically like all like East Coast, till I die. And then one time I visited a friend, and I came to Santa Monica for just a few days.
Yeah, bad idea.
Yeah, yeah, bad idea, right? And I remember like I think it was the morning off that I had landed. It was such a beautiful day, and he was like, "Hey, if you're hungry, let's go have pancakes." And we went to IHOP, right? And we went to IHOP, and we were sitting on Bundy and Idaho, which is like two really like famous cross streets on Santa Monica, very close to the pier, basically. And I was looking at the pier, I was looking at the sunshine. I was like, I'm never gonna leave. Like, this is amazing, right? Why would I? So that was it. I was in Santa Monica for the longest time, and then up until like a few months back, I just recently moved to San Francisco, and only to be as close to AI as
Yeah.
possible because all the action is here. We don't want to miss out on it. But LA was where we like we started the company. And actually, my last company was started and built and ran out of LA. All the LA investors participated, so very familiar with the ecosystem in Southern California or California in general now.
It's interesting. My youngest child actually just moved back to Laguna, just south of LA there, and
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah, she probably grew up like at least high school was in Richmond,
Yeah.
Virginia, but she ended up in California. And man, it's going to take dynamite to blow her back out of there because I think, she just the weather is just so incredible, on that
Oh,
side. But
and
it is
Laguna is beautiful. Laguna
it
is
is
amazing. I know it's
absolutely beautiful.
expensive, but it's
It
really
is.
nice.
It
Laguna is
is.
super nice, and she's probably like super close to the beach and everything too.
Well, I can check with her on my phone, and every time I see she's at the beach. So I'm thinking, I don't know how
Yes.
you're going to get a job. Are you going to work when you're out there? But you mentioned something really interesting that you went to San Francisco to kind of be in the AI epicenter. But
Yeah.
so a few years ago, I remember there was this, exodus like
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah.
valley, out of Silicon Valley, and they were headed, a lot of the companies headed to Austin, Texas,
Yeah.
or other places.
Totally.
But have you has that
Mm.
stopped, or was that just a a false alarm? I mean, are companies still pretty
Sure.
well based in the Silicon Valley area?
What a great observation, Kevin. You know what I'm a big believer of like Warren Buffett always says, when the market sells, you buy, and that's really interesting. Although the exodus still exists. Like I wouldn't say the traffic's much lower. If you look at the pre-pandemic days,
Yeah.
Silicon Valley is not 100% back. It's definitely back to much better areas, but a lot of people still leaving. So what's happening is, let's say imagine the SaaS ecosystem or the software ecosystem, if it's this big, and this is what San Francisco was. Obviously, there's other technology pieces, but it was primarily like a lot of SaaS software companies, cloud companies had taken over Silicon Valley. And obviously, there's like good hardware companies too. But now what's happening is a lot of the hardware moved out, a lot of the software companies moved out to Austin and Utah, and there's like other hubs now that are doing really well. Now the bubble's smaller. I think it's AI now only, and there's a
Mm,
fewer AI companies, so it doesn't feel as crowded. There's like people are back there. You still see foot traffic, but a lot of these buildings are empty. Like commercial real
mm,
estate is still like very empty. Like there's office buildings that have spaces. I remember like in 2019, 2020, we were thinking of like opening an office in San Francisco, and even WeWorks were like backed up by like 18 months. And now like
wow.
half the WeWorks empty, or half
Yeah.
75% of office buildings are still empty. So I think it's still not 100% back. I think if AI keeps becoming as big as software, then it would probably be back. But I think if San Francisco, and because of OpenAI and NVIDIA, they kind of found like a new hub of AI, and now they're attracting a lot of AI talent there. But if AI wasn't there, then San Francisco would look like a ghost town right
Mm,
now.
mm. Well, I mean, I mean, AI is such an all-encompassing term. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much under that banner. But I want to talk about Involve AI for just a minute? Like, what was the impetus for starting that? What was, I mean, so often, people that we chat with here is, they were like scratching their own itch. It was something that they needed internally, and then it just turned into a product, which turned into a company or something. So, talk about the genesis of Involve AI.
Yeah, totally, Kevin. So for my first company, what we were doing, Kevin, in the healthcare startup I was talking about,
Mhm.
we were very focused on doing hardcore machine learning problems, and a lot of the problems were around radiologists. I had a co-founder whose parents were radiologists, and we started with a very simple idea, and we started doing some really hardcore stuff. I'll give you an example. Like one of the things we were doing was we were doing early detections of cancer with ultrasound machines, and what it does is it can actually use machine learning to predict certain types of cancers in a much cheaper way that would require CT scans or MRIs. These machines are very expensive. They're backed up, right? So, but if you can do it with an ultrasound machine, these are portable machines. You can literally take them room to room. I can pack it in a suitcase, and obviously there's a lot of other applications. So our premises were very interesting, Kevin. We basically sold to one doctor, and it was all expansion. We would go to one doctor in a hospital or a chain, and then from there we would just go one by one, try to like upsell, cross sell, and that's the
Hmm.
play we had. We only had close to a few handful of like maybe like 50, 100 customers, but inside that we served close to 20,000 doctors, right? So I was really excited about the fact that it's not landing net new deals. It was all about expansion, upsell, cross sell, churn prevention for us. So that's what we started with Involve AI. Our premise was like, hey, what if we can take a lot of the data? A lot of the world is moving towards subscription business models.
Hmm.
So what's happening is right now, let's say only 20% of the world's businesses have subscription models, but eventually we believe everyone's going to be like a SaaS company or everyone's going to be a subscription company. You're already seeing this with car companies and phone companies, right? Like now you pay a subscription like 20 bucks a month or 50
Yep.
bucks a month and you're locked in, and same with your car, and you can keep upgrading to different models, but you're locked into BMW if that's kind of what you own. And
Hmm.
that's like very interesting. So I think there's a lot of subscription models, and what's going to happen is that people would care a lot more about retention and upsell and cross sell than landing net new deals. So that
Yeah.
was the hypothesis we had. And the idea was very simple. We're going to go into any company and say, just give us all your data, wherever it lives, Salesforce, Snowflake, HubSpot, you have it in spreadsheets, you have it in someone's email, John's email, Bob's email. We're
Exactly.
going to go and get everything
Post-it
out.
notes.
Yeah, post-it notes. We're gonna get everything out. We're gonna clean it, sanitize it. We're gonna give you really good dashboards, almost like a red, yellow, green, right? You wake up in the morning, here's a list of your 20 accounts, 500 accounts, whatever that might be, red, yellow, green, usage, churn risk, executive sponsored, are
Mm.
you talking like all these key things that are needed to keep an account? What's happening outside? Is there any market news that can cause you to like, is there M&A happening that either you can lose the deal or
Yeah.
double down on it? All of those will just give you in a simple dashboard. So the idea was really good, Kevin. What we realized is we almost became like a data consulting company.
Hmm. For sure.
So
Yeah.
it was a very hard problem to solve, and it wasn't the outcome we were hoping. It wasn't like multi-billions of dollars, but hopefully we can take our learnings and try to improve it with Jiva now.
So was that one was acquired?
Yeah, that is correct. It was like an aqua hire, you can call that. So we didn't make any money out of it. My first company was acquired as well, and we close to that. We made about 3 million each as founders. So it was like and it was bootstrap company, so it was very
Yeah.
profitable
Pretty
exit.
good start. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah, and then I was only like 23 when that happened, so it was really
Yeah.
good. For this one, we didn't make any money.
You bought anything on the McDonald's menu you wanted when
Yeah,
you
totally. Yeah, totally. I can buy like an annual subscription, right? Like
didn't have to shop at the dollar menu anymore. That's right.
yeah, yeah, totally. It was really nice. Yeah, we have a very funny story. I bought a house for my mom. I had a co-founder who said that she bought a lot of shoes. It's like, that's how we spend our money.
So let's talk about the transition to Jiva. What was the initial, the idea that you had that you thought, hey, was it something you were trying to solve for yourself,
Mhm.
that kind of grew into that, or you saw just kind of a gap in the market, or talk about what was the story?
Yeah, so the story with Jiva, Kevin, is that, Involve AI wasn't working out super well. And we were like in this transition phase where we were almost running out of money. And we built this tool internally for ourselves because
Yeah.
we desperately needed more cash. And the best way to get cash is not investors, it's usually more customers who are willing to pay you. So what we decided to do was, hey, we're going to make one last attempt. We're going to reach out to as many good qualified leads as possible. and we didn't have any salespeople by that time because we were slowly like reducing our capacity. We were slowly reducing the team size. We were just like left to a handful of people basically doing everything. So one of our really smart engineers was basically just playing around with some of the GPT stuff that had come out and there was going on, and he had built like a really savvy algorithm to go and find the right people from LinkedIn, then go find their emails, predict it, clean the data, do research on them, right? Run like he used Perplexity and Google searches to find as much information about, let's say if I'm reaching out to you, Kevin, I can go listen to your podcast and kind of find like things about you that I can mention in the email and do
Yeah.
that. So that became really, really interesting for us. And that's kind of what we started doing. And that's what became Jiva. But the whole premise was that a lot of the manual, repetitive tasks that sellers have to do today, we believe AI can do it better, faster, cheaper. And I'm sure like you're in the AI. I mean, you do this every day now, right? With so many cool people who are coming to your podcast. You must have heard about Cursor and Windsurf, and all these tools are like code gen solutions. So helping engineers write better code. There's GitHub Copilot. Now these guys are like hundreds of millions in annual recurring revenue in just a couple of years. So we believe that Salesforce isn't solving that. Maybe there's
Yeah.
an opportunity to build something like that, but for sellers and salespeople. So that's kind of what got us to Jiva. And we're only like 6 months old, actually, like as a company, but we went from zero to almost 5 million in annual recurring revenue. No marketing. Like we haven't spent $0 in marketing, a lot of word of mouth. Now we're starting marketing, right? We were talking about that right before I jumped on the podcast. But it's been like a lot of word of mouth, a lot of referrals, and just solving a real need that exists in the market. So that's kind of what we're doing.
It's interesting. I saw a post maybe yesterday that talked about how LinkedIn is really cracking down on like those companies or those bots or whatever that are scraping information,
Yeah,
that
that's correct.
on LinkedIn. So how are
That's
you
correct. Yeah.
getting around that with Jiva that
Yeah.
says I don't divulge any trade secrets here that
No,
LinkedIn
no,
may hear,
absolutely.
but
No, all good, all good. We work very closely with Microsoft, and we're very smart about how we not try to scrape LinkedIn because there's a lot of privacy laws, and obviously LinkedIn is like so big that they do not want anyone to operate outside of LinkedIn. So they're
Mhm.
they're trying to make LinkedIn the new email, right? That's
Yep.
kind of where you live and breathe, which is totally fair. And if I was LinkedIn, I would do exactly the same thing. So what we do, Kevin, is we have this like really interesting way of getting data from LinkedIn without scraping the data. What we do is we basically run waterfall enrichment, and it starts with Google searches. So as an example, if I need to pull information about you and your work history, instead of going into LinkedIn and then scraping information, I can actually just search for Kevin and your company like
Mm.
umbrella, and like I
Right.
can search for your history, like say work history, and then Google, because LinkedIn is passing all that information to Google and indexing that data because
Mm.
they want people to be found, they want
Yep.
stuff to be found so they can go back to LinkedIn. We just get that data from Google, which is open source, it's public data.
Yep.
Obviously there's some like smaller, much smaller cost to it, but that's how we get information about you. So we can get your work history, your recent posts you liked, we can get tons of good information about you. What we cannot get is like email addresses. Now we have like a few series of vendors who are very good at finding email. We like hit one vendor, right? One API. If we get the email back, if passes, great. If not, we hit the second one, hit the third one. Same thing with cell phone. Same thing with if we want to do research on you and your podcast, we can run it on Perplexity.
Mhm.
So that's what we're doing. We're being very smart about how do we use these small agents that are like spread across multiple
Right.
places, kind of find good information together. It's clean, crisp information. It's real
Mhm.
time, which means that it's unlike ZoomInfo or something like that. And obviously ZoomInfo is a huge company, but the challenge is they maintain their own data. What we try to do is just find it fresh. This way, the accuracy is much better.
Yep. I it's interesting when what you mentioned earlier and tell me, correct me if I didn't hear this right, but not only are you finding the data, it sounds like that you're verifying it at the same
Right.
time.
That's correct. Yeah. The only thing we cannot verify right now is cell phones. But besides that, everything gets verified, work history to what the role is, what the responsibility is, what is happening, what the revenue is, email addresses, like all of the data gets verified in real time. So you get very high quality information and knowledge about people.
So you're solving an issue that every company out there has that's just
I
trying to
agree.
find information for new leads out there.
Exactly.
But
That's spot on.
the next step is, so if I'm a company out there and I'm struggling with just sales, just revenue,
Yeah. Mhm.
just giving me a bunch of leads
Yeah.
If I have a really bad sales process, you haven't solved the problem. From all I'm doing is exacerbating the problem. So, is there also something built into the
Yeah.
process that says, hey, not only are we going to give you leads, we're going to there's kind of a next step. We're going to help you reach out to those leads in an effective way. We're going to give you sales, AI agents on the back end.
That's
Is
exactly.
it a full ecosystem, or are you
Yeah.
focusing on one specific problem?
No, no, I'm not a believer of like one specific problem. I feel that's like a bit overrated in my opinion because the world has become it's so easy to build things, right? Like as an example, Instagram, you can see, right? They're a compound company now. They have the TikTok functionality, they have the Snapchat functionality, right? You need a lot of those things. Obviously, we start with one thing, but so in short, what we do, Kevin, is our my thesis is that anything that us talking, we don't think AI will ever do that, or at least it's not able to have the human to human connection for many, many decades. That's
Right.
kind of what I believe in because people buy from people, unless like AI is
Yeah.
making all decisions to purchase, people buy from people, and actually people buy from people they trust. So it's even worse, right? It's like, so one is it's really hard to build trust with AI. You just can't have like an AI talk and you're instantly like, sure, I'm going to pay you $50,000 for an enterprise software license. No, right?
Yes.
Probably not. So what we do is we believe that discovery calls, demos, and carrying out the sales cycle will never be done with AI.
Hmm.
Everything else can be done better, faster, cheaper. And let me tell you, like everything that we are trying to automate, what we do now and what we want to do in the future. But everything from finding good data, so find the right companies, find the right decision makers, find information about these people, their contact information, their infographics and news and all that market intent data. All of this AI can do, and we do that. The other thing would be enrichment, which is like, hey, I have a CRM, I have like these 500 accounts I want to go after. Go find the right people, go find the right leads, or here's my list, incomplete information, go fill it for me. I
Hmm.
think I can do a better job at that. The other thing would be like doing a multi-touch campaign or a sequence. I don't think AIs can 100% replace it.
Hmm.
And the reason is not that it's not good enough, but also the reason is I know there's a lot of spam bots and you get like really bad AI
Yeah.
personalization. I'm sure you've seen examples of those. I think AI will get better and it'll keep getting better. The challenge is that there's a lot of laws around like how many people you can reach out to on email, how many people you can reach out to LinkedIn. It's much better if it actually comes from your inbox. So we're not 100% replacing it, but the content generation, which is finding and researching people, creating the first personalized email, creating a first LinkedIn message to a second hyper personalized email to creating a text message, creating an AI voicemail drop. All of this, I think AI will do better. So inbound automation, outbound automation, and then also content creation. Example like presentations and slides. So you can create a blog or a thought leadership
Hmm.
article from all the data you're capturing on calls. You can easily like we already know which prospect you talk to. We know information about them. We know information about the company. We can create a really good presentation, like a few slides, 10 slides ready to go when you're talking to someone. So that kind of stuff we're focused a lot on. Like everything that salespeople do, we have like sticky notes of like 500 things that reps do every day.
Yep.
Can we just automate that one by one so that one rep can be like a 10x rep? That's
Hmm.
that's kind of the core focus we have right now. But we don't think AI's there's a lot of startups doing that actually. I'm sure you'll see them along the way, but there's startups where like you have an AI rep, you train the AI rep, the customers go talk to the AI person, that person is gonna pitch everything. I don't think that's coming. That's like I hate those. I don't think even with technology getting
Yep.
better, people just won't trust it. So
Yep.
so anything that's not doing a demo or talking to an actual human being, we're just trying to chip away at that with AI.
One thing I've noticed is, and just how just had personal encounters
Yeah,
with that type of service is that at some point in time it kind of falls off a cliff. I mean, at some
sure.
point in time it runs out of its capacity
Yeah.
to personalize or to respond
Agree.
in a real accurate way. And you mentioned this word probably three or four times
Sure.
in the interview so far is trust.
Yeah.
I mean,
Agree.
it is so, what do people buy? They buy from people that they know, like, and trust.
That's
I mean,
exactly right.
it is so
Yeah.
accurate. But I mean, you seem to really have that's one of your driving principles.
Mhm.
Obviously it's one of your pillars that you're trying to build Jiva around is like, how do we create trust or an
I agree.
environment of trust? So
I totally
what,
agree.
I mean, does that word come up a lot in your
Oh,
internal meetings and
oh, yeah.
when you send out memos and stuff like that, you say, hey guys, we're
Yeah.
building trust here.
Yeah, totally, totally, Kevin. I'm such a big believer of that. I feel like as a person, I live my life with a lot of integrity. Even when my second company wasn't doing so well, we had a chance to just recap all the investors, squeeze them out, right? Like make it simple. That would be much better for me. I didn't do that. I still have a lot of those folks with Jiva. Actually, all of them.
Mm,
They got a really good piece of equity in this company. We didn't change much. We
mhm.
right. So stuff like that really matters to me because I feel like somebody gave me a shot, and we don't want to let them down. And that's kind of how I feel about like businesses too, right? A lot of times, a lot of software, a lot of like solutions are just smoke, or smoke and mirrors, right? Like it really doesn't exist, but you can build beautiful branding and great marketing, and right, like put a good story together, but not actually have the substance to it. So yeah, we care a
Yeah.
lot about that. That's number one. I think trust is really important, and trust with stuff like ChatGPT, super easy to use, and things like that. But okay, how do we make it such that a big financial institution can
Mhm.
say, okay, yeah, we're gonna have like AI run our sales process or our customer service, and not have human beings in the loop. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like a really difficult question for someone sitting there and making that decision. They can easily lose their job, right? I think you
Hmm.
must have heard this, right? No one got fired for like bringing on IBM, or in this environment it could be like no one got fired from buying like Oracle software or Salesforce software, right? But for buying Jiva, they can get fired if they
Yeah.
if it doesn't do a
Yeah.
good job, and it's pretty expensive. So we try our best to do things like that. The other thing is one thing, and I obviously we're not chasing competitors here, but none of our competitors have they have demo request forms, but you can actually go in and sign up. So recently we were like, why can't it? Like our product is really good. We believe it's really good. We just open it up, and we got almost 3,000 signups within a day. Everyone's using it for free, and it
Wow.
actually costs us a lot of money because we didn't think it through on how the credits would work. A lot of people were just like downloading thousands of people's of lists, and we were like, sure, it's fine for now, right? But
We
maybe we'll
thought
cap
30 were going
it.
to come and 3,000 showed up.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. But it was awesome. It was amazing, and I feel like that's one more way of like just building trust that hey, we believe our product's really good, and you can actually just use it for free instead of like having to talk to someone. That's a small way, but we do care about that a lot for sure.
You touched on something really interesting there. It's not just a matter of trust. It is the flip side of that is like my brand's reputation.
Oh, I
I
agree,
mean,
100%.
it
Yeah,
takes a second to
yeah,
destroy,
yeah.
reputation,
That's
and
exactly right.
it takes an eternity to build it back. The whole idea that
Yeah,
um and you obviously heard your uncle's advice, and you are a
yeah.
good salesperson, obviously,
I
because
appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah,
just
I,
I'm
I'm
ready to
trying.
buy, and I'm just interviewing you on a podcast. But if you and I jumped on an elevator, we're going up
Sure.
10 floors, you got about a
Yeah.
minute, to talk about the product in itself, and how would you approach me as a potential buyer?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way, Kevin, is my elevator pitch is always around like, hey, like I always start with something like, like what are you most focused on in your business, right? That's like the first question I ask, and 90% of the time people are like it's growth, right? It's like that's like
Yep.
number one problem. And I think the easiest thing is like, hey, if we were to help your team become 10x sellers, and can we help, if we just tripled your pipeline without you doing much, would that be interesting for you? I think that's like my kind of like my discovery questions when I'm asking. And I don't talk about AI. I don't talk about much secret sauce on how we do it, but that's usually what we start with. And then we talk about that, with Jiva, what we're trying to do is like automate a lot of the list building, enrichment, outreach, a lot of the inbound follow-ups, a lot of the tasks that build your pipeline so that your reps can just focus on closing high quality deals.
Hmm.
That's what we focus on with AI. And would that be interesting for you? So that I know this wasn't the 10-second elevator pitch, but that's usually kind of like the how I try to sell it and how I position it in the first like couple of minutes of talking to someone.
So if you're looking at the model of like a sales funnel, you kind of
Yeah,
got you're trying to bring in the new leads into the top of the funnel
yeah,
there. And are
totally.
you moving people through that progression with Jiva? Are you moving people
Sure.
through the sales funnel?
So far, Kevin, we're very focused on just like insanely at the top of the funnel.
Hmm.
We're slowly moving a little bit on the mid funnel with like constant enrichments, and we got a new feature where we were doing feedback loops, or like loops of like customer nurtured loops. Like you got a lead, you talk to them, now you can put them in a very personalized nurture sequence as an example. That's like a very classic use case of that. So those are stuff that we're focused on, but right now it's still very top of funnel focused, but we're slowly inching our way down. I think like this part, if you think this is the funnel, right, then this part is very hard to take away from the rep, right?
Yeah.
That's like, but anything else in the middle, I think we can slowly automate or chip away at task,
Mhm.
and that's what it would look like. One of the things that I believe in, Kevin, is, and I don't know if it'll happen sooner rather than later, but we have this concept of full stack engineers,
Mhm.
which means that now with AI, a backend engineer can also do front end tasks, a front end engineer can do back end tasks, we can understand cloud, we can do QA on our own. So like one engineer can be a full stack. I think there's going to be full stack sales reps too, which is like the older way of selling, right? Like we would close deals, we would manage the account, we would bring in the leads. But with SaaS and everything happening, there's like so much bifurcation that happened, right? You have like SDRs, you then have outbound SDRs, inbound SDRs, you have MDRs even like before SDRs, and then you have like senior SDR, junior SDR, then you have like junior AE, senior AE, right? Then you have a solutions architect, you have like all these different roles. I feel like what's going to happen with AI is like one rep can actually become really
Mm.
good, and maybe just have like three levels of sales reps. They're doing everything from hunting, closing deals, maybe even farming. I think that's what we are trying to enable with AI.
I also think that, as you're moving, as I guess a lead is moving through the funnel, is if you can equip the sales rep with better information,
Oh yeah, agreed.
that helps that process, reduces the friction
Yeah,
in the funnel,
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. And I
totally.
think that,
I totally
what you
agree.
guys are doing certainly would do that. And a better equipped rep, they got more confidence. They are better salespeople. I mean, there's just
100%.
a number of advantages I would see.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Kevin. Yeah, I think that truly excites us on just helping them along the way. Actually, the funny part is one of the really simple feature that we felt like we shouldn't be even doing because Google will do it at some point. But we recently launched a feature which is just called auto drafting, Kevin. And what it does is it's going to look at your Gmail inbox or your Outlook inbox, and it's going to label the inbox. So it's very simple. We pass it through GPT, and we say that should this be a conversation, like someone you should reply to, like next best action, someone who's giving you marketing jargon, someone who's actually just like trying to sell you, whatever it is. But right, we would differentiate it. And then in the next best step, what we do is we would read your last 30 emails. So we see how you sell or how you send emails, what's your style, what's your tonality, long emails, short emails, like
Mm.
how do you say certain things. Super easy, right? We can capture that data from your last 30 emails, and we, in your voice, we just draft a message, for example, right? Believe it or not, it's such a simple feature, and we know at some point Google will do it, Microsoft will do it, everyone, if they're not already doing it, right? But that's like one of the coolest things that reps love, and they're like, "Oh
Yeah.
my God, like just you reminding us of like what's next." It's like so important. I'm like, and when we obviously built it, we took like 3-4 hours to build it and deploy it and launch it. It was no work at all. There's no secret sauce to it. It's nothing hard, but again, like you're saying, right? Just like even just a simple reminder that hey, this is a deal you got to follow up on, right?
Yeah.
And this is what you could do next is just so critical.
And I mean, they work so independently generally, as a sales rep. If any help that you can give them to say, okay, here's the next step in the process, here's something you can do right now that would kind of move the needle on a potential prospect. But
Totally
um,
agree.
as you know, if you've listened to other podcasts we've done in this series, that our
Yeah,
primary target audience are really owners, founders,
yeah, spot
CEOs
on.
of
Spot
marketing
on.
agencies, kind of in
That's
that
exactly right.
space.
That's
So
exactly right.
talk about the use case of Jiva for if I owned a
Yeah,
marketing agency, what
yeah,
give me some
yeah.
integrations here.
So Kevin, huge believer that SDRs and demand is going to live with marketing. It's getting harder and harder for sellers to create demand from scratch. It used to
Mhm.
be possible before, but with so many channels, it's become a tech problem more than anything. I think you need to understand technology. You need to understand how domains work, how warm up works, how LinkedIn works, how Facebook works, how ads work. That's kind of how you're creating demand. So what I truly feel from a couple of perspectives, one, I'm a big believer that demand ultimately is going to run and be with marketing more and more. So marketing is already moving, as you're seeing, a lot of the agencies are moving away from brand marketing. That's already happening in the last 10 years to more demand marketing. And I think that's what's going to happen forever now. The other thing is how content is changing is so interesting too, right? Like now I don't go to Google that often. So now you have to do ChatGPT,
Yeah.
SEO optimization, and all that's good stuff. The second thing is, I think for founders, we work with tons of agencies to use a tool like us. Could be like instead of hiring 5 or 6 SDRs, BDRs, and 3, 4 reps, they could just have one person or two people now be as good as 10 or 20 people, right?
Mm.
So, and or even the founders do it. I think we have so many people, and that's how I started, right? We were solving our own niche. I built it for myself as a founder, and then this could be a really interesting tool for founders, kind of what we're building. But I feel that the world is moving more towards specializations,
Hmm.
right? That's why I think agency model is just so unique. It's still living and thriving, and it's going to continue getting better and better. I feel like a lot of the functions that were living inside companies are going to get out to agencies. You're already seeing that with like tools like Clay and Clay agencies,
Hmm.
right? All these agencies that are coming out. Salesforce now, there's so many agencies that support Salesforce and HubSpot. I feel that's like such a thriving model. So
Yeah.
I'm very bullish on it.
But a lot of those are reactive tools versus proactive, and it sounds like to me that the Jiva takes much more of a proactive stance of
Yeah.
the verification and just providing clean,
Yeah.
lists and processes that are around, kind of the top of funnel that you're
That's
trying to
exactly right.
trying to fill. We've talked about a lot of things around Jiva. Is there anything that I haven't asked about that you think would be helpful to our audience that as we kind of
Yeah.
the predecessor of stepping into the rapid fire round?
Sure. One thing that I think, I know you didn't ask me this, but something that I think a lot about is that I, because I'm in like we're in such of the cutting edge of the models, and our job is to experiment with everything that's coming down the line. I've seen it like, and again, I sound jaded saying this, but I read this somewhere where somebody said that AI is not going to replace people, but people using AI will replace people not using
Yeah,
AI. And I
that's
totally
true.
believe that. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's changing anytime soon. So I know you didn't ask me this, but that's something
No,
that
I
I've been
think it's
thinking a
right.
lot about. And if you were to ask me like what's the future of like people versus AI, I think it's not there yet. It's not going to be there yet, at least for the next decade or so. And it's the time for like folks who are using AI every day are going to be so much better than folks who are not.
And it has such a broad, use case.
Hmm.
And it really is kind of, yeah, I hate to use the word infiltrating, but
Yeah.
it's just it is like just a widespread, mist or fog that is just covering the entire landscape of the business world, and even broader than that. But yeah, I have seen that very quote, that you quoted that, a couple of times, that just even in the last couple of weeks. But
Yeah.
where do you see Jiva? Where's it going? What is the 36-month, prognostication look like?
Yeah, what a great question, Kevin. I mean, there's only a couple of things I care a lot about. I would be awesome to build this into a massive company. I think that would be the dream, right? I don't know if it's possible where we land. You always aim for the stars and you land on the moon, but like the short of it is it would be awesome to create like the next Microsoft or Google or OpenAI. If we can do that, we definitely want a shot at it. And that would be amazing to create a generational company and brand. And obviously the products might change, things may change, but we would love to build something very unique, very big. That's like a long-term vision, obviously. In terms of like short things, I think we are very focused on kind of building like a very simple copilot like solution that people can use and live and breathe out of every day. And if we can try to penetrate the markets and be in the hands of as many sellers as possible, one of the things that I we see a gap is if you think about marketing, Kevin, a bunch of folks, HubSpot, people live and breathe in HubSpot, that people who use
Hmm.
HubSpot. There's obviously other marketing tools that are very addicting. People are in it every day. Salesforce hasn't become that for sales, right? So sellers don't have like a tool, like they're in email, they're probably in calendar, but they're not in something every day. That's something exciting for us. We're like,
Yep.
can we create something that sellers can use day in, day out? Even like some of the tools for lead gen and enrichment, they're usually used by one person who's like then taking all the data and passing
Hmm.
it to everybody.
Hmm.
So I think that's something that's super interesting for us, and I think a lot about if we can create a lot of value there. I think that would be super exciting over the next 36 months.
I mean, yeah, it gets back to that whole idea that you got a holistic perspective. You are trying to build an ecosystem,
That's exactly
around the
right.
strategy. and one
Yeah.
that is that you live in and you work in. You don't. It's just not a tool you're kind of using on the side. So, it's exciting to see. It'll be really exciting to kind of watch from a distance to
Yeah.
see the growth and even how you pivot and new features and products that you come out with. But
Yeah.
I do want to jump into the rapid fire round here. I want to respect your time, but I've
Sure.
got a few questions here. Just
Let's
real
do it.
quick, short answers. Some of these you may have already touched on, but we ask these questions to just about every guest that we have, and it's really interesting to hear their responses. But
That's
number
awesome.
one, and you mentioned your father died at an early age, but did you get along with your parents or your parent, growing up?
Oh yeah, I always say I always say I'm the second most favorite child of my mother, and she only has two kids. So so I love her and she loves me, but I'm the second favorite.
Well, then you answered the second question because do you have siblings?
I do have an older brother who's awesome, but he's the opposite of entrepreneurial, like he works for Molina Healthcare. He's doing a great job there, but I do have an older brother. Yeah.
Any pets
I do have two dogs.
and children,
No
family?
children. No children yet. Yeah.
All right. So on a work day, what time do you go to bed,
Oh man, 1 a.m.
and what
I wish
time
it
do
was
you try to
earlier.
roll out of bed in the morning?
6:30.
Wow, you're one of those guys that operate on about 5 hours of sleep.
I am, which is really bad. I love sleeping. I try to sleep in on Sundays, but usually I sleep late, and it's not that I'm working till very late. I probably close work at 11, but then I'm lingering, which is really bad, right? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I'm
The
just
doom
lingering.
scroll.
Oh
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly. I'm doom scrolling. I'm reading something. I'm wasting time.
Um, your favorite vacation spot in the world, money no object.
Oh, that's so fun. I love going to Big Bear, which is a
Oh yeah,
SoCal
been
spot. I
there.
love going there. Yeah, I actually have a small cabin there, so I love taking my dogs there. I know it's not the most expensive spot, but it's super fun for me to go there. I have a lot of really great memories.
I love it. I mean, I remember one day I was on the beach in t-shirts and a swim trunks, and then I was skiing at Big Bear the same day. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
that's a great.
amazing.
Oh, yeah, right. Only Southern California can offer
Only
you
in
that.
Southern California. That's right. So if you were king for a day in the whole marketing world, what is one thing that you would change about the marketing space?
Ooh, about the marketing. That's such a great question. So I want to answer a different question. Somebody asked me this yesterday. Actually, my niece asked me like, if you were the president, what would you do? Or if you were the king, what would you do? And I was like, I'd probably like remove taxes for everyone. I think that would be
Okay, I like
amazing.
that answer better.
I was like, I was so I got a day to think about it. What would I change in marketing? Um, Man, one thing that would be super interesting is like this fake news has been
Yeah.
like really something that's been bothering me. I'll give you an insight. So recently, India and Pakistan, I'm Indian, right?
Yep.
Even though I'm American now, but I grew up Indian and not trying to go into technicalities of war, but we had a war breaking out with Pakistan and I'm glad that it didn't and everything was fine. But every morning I was waking up and there was fake news from really credible news stories. And it was
Mm,
like, oh, there's a tax here, there's a tax there. So I would call up my mom and I'd be like, Mom, are you sure like you don't want to come here for a few days till divorce? And she was like, nothing's happening. What are you talking about? I was like, it's all over the news. It's like all fake news. And if there was something that, some marketing tool or if all the marketers got together, we're like, we're gonna stop fake news or fake
yes.
stories from happening. That'd be super interesting. I don't know how to solve that problem, but that's one thing that is like a very fresh topic for me.
It is. I mean, it's funny because we ask that question on every chat, and so often people talk about, I want to remove spam, I want to remove this, I want to remove,
Or
fake those types of things. And I mean, even your answer is kind of in that same general
that same
space. It's like
category.
it's
Okay.
just truth and integrity,
Yeah,
in this space. And the people that want to do it well, they all have that same
yeah,
desire,
totally.
so it's a driving force. But
Mhm.
Gee, thanks so much for just taking time today. It's been a real pleasure to chat, and I mean, you got to be one of the happiest founders that we've ever interviewed. That
I
you're
appreciate
just
it,
smiling
Kevin.
all the time, and it
Thank you.
just
It was
brings
so
such good
fun.
energy,
I appreciate
to
it.
the
I'm so
chat.
grateful. I'm so grateful you called me. It was such a good day, and I really enjoyed the questions. And hopefully we can catch up soon, and maybe we want some of your listeners get a beer together. That'd be super cool.
I appreciate your time, and thanks again for just sharing your story and just really helping out, marketing agencies build and grow their agencies through all this great content that we're trying to provide here. So, gee, thanks again. Have a great afternoon, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. To learn more, go to umbrellaus.com.